Hey guys, what's going on? Shah here, and today something that I normally don't do is more of like a reaction type video. I haven't done one of these in a while, but Blizzard very recently, about 28 minutes ago at the time of recording this, released their class set designs for their tier sets in the upcoming patch Embers of Neltharion. And I'm just going to kind of go through some of the tank sets specifically. I don't think I'm going to look too much at DPS specs, but I'll leave this link in the description below if you'd like to check it out, read it for yourself, and let me know what you guys think. But we're going to go over pretty much all of the tanks, I think. I think I have a decent understanding of how most of the tanks work, how they play, and I think I can give like a general overall feeling about how these sets are actually going to work and interact with the class. So let's dive in. So first things first, we're going to start with the Blood Death Knight. We're just going to kind of go down in order. So your 2-set bonus for the Blood Death Knight, your Heart Strike and your Blood Boil deal 20% increased damage and have a 10% chance to grant you Vampiric Blood for 5 seconds. I think this is something that they really need. A lot of DK's issues from my experience raiding with them, and obviously in Mythic Keys, is that their kind of like raw, just sustained damage is typically pretty low. If they don't have something like Abomination Limb or something like Dancing Rune Weapon rolling, their damage seems to be a little bit on the lower end. And this is really apparent in like Mythic raid settings where any other tank can pretty easily rip threat off of, an average Blood Death Knight. A Blood Death Knight has to run like double DPS trinkets and really optimize some of their cooldowns to be able to do that. So I think this fills in that kind of like that weakness that they currently have, both in their like single target as well as their AoE. And then also getting Vamp Blood for 5 seconds is kind of insane, right? So Vamp Blood increases basically your health as well as like your healing in turn, or in essence. So that's going to be pretty powerful. I'm wondering if a lot of these other sets are going to go along those lines of like proccing part of your like a major or at least a minor cooldown. So we'll see when we get there. But your 4-set is then when you gain Vampiric Blood, you are infused with Vampiric Strength, granting you 10% strength for 5 seconds. Your Heart Strike and Blood Boil extend the duration of Vampiric Strength by 0.5 seconds. Whenever you... I'm assuming it's not only when you proc it, but it's also when you actually use Vamp Blood. You're going to be infused with a buff called Vampiric Strength, giving you 10% strength. Now, that's actually pretty fucking powerful. I'm really excited to see how this ends up playing out. I think Blood Knights are going to feel a little bit stronger next patch. They have a lot of... Obviously, this set, they're obviously going to have more secondary stat. And there's like a lot of cool trinkets and things that they're going to have access to from both dungeons and the raid. So Blood Knights, I think you should be pretty excited about this. All right, moving on. We have the Demon Hunter, the Vengeance. So your 2-set Soul Fragments heal 10% more, and generating a Soul Fragment increases your fire damage by 2% for 6 seconds. Multiple applications may overlap. So this is going to be similar to Frailty, how as you just consume souls, you're just going to do increased fire damage. Fire damage is mostly going to come through Immolation Aura, as well as like Sigil of Flame. And then there's a few other things that do fire damage as well in the kit. But this will kind of bake into the 4-set, it looks like. So Shear and Fracture deal fire damage now. So your filler now does fire damage, and after consuming 20 soul fragments, your next cast of Shear or Fracture applies Fiery Brand to its target for 6 seconds. Oh wow. That's going to be unique to play with after consuming 20 soul fragments. I don't know the exact rate that players consume fragments. I think it obviously depends on the size of the pool, but I feel like in some dungeon scenarios specifically, whereas mostly where I tank at, there's times where I'm often generating like 5 fragments like every couple seconds. So being able to actually have Fiery Brand up on a lot of targets might actually provide a lot of damage reduction. Fiery Brand also got a pretty good glow up going into Dragonflight. So if you haven't played Demon Hunter, back in Shadowlands and in previous expansions, Fiery Brand really was mainly used as a DR, but now it does like actually a good bit of damage. Like I think it on my DH, who's like 413 item level, my Fiery Brand will do about 40k on average per cast, which is pretty substantial for a 1-minute CD, especially in single target, as well as a 40% DR, right? So I think that's actually going to significantly increase the Demon Hunter single target, which is not something that they're like weak at, but it's not one of their strengths, that's for sure. And you're going to have the ever ramping fire damage. That works with things like the Charred Warblades talent, or whatever it's called, that heals you for your fire damage that you deal. And then you also have some talents in the main, or the spec tree that increase your fire damage, if I'm not mistaken. So this is going to actually be a very compelling 4-set. I don't know how I rank it next to the Blood Knight. I think Vamp Blood is much stronger than Fiery Brand, But someone who's like tracking this soul fragment buff that you get after you consume 20 fragments might actually be, you could play around it quite well. Ooh, that'll be good. That's cool. I like that. I like that a lot. This might actually bring into a meta of the Fiery Brand spread build, if that's actually possible. Now, it only applies Fiery Brand for 6 seconds, but if you're able to like also continuously spread that around as well, you might see a kind of like a small shift at the bottom of the talent tree in the spec tree for the Vengeance Demon Hunter. But we'll have to see. We're gonna have to wait to test these. All right, next we have Guardian. As most of you know, or maybe none of you know, I used to be a Guardian Druid main, and I used to play it pretty seriously. I ended up quitting playing it at the end of Season 4 in Shadowlands just because I kind of had enough of being bullied by Blizzard. And that ended up still being the case, is that Bear is still in kind of a pretty rough spot all around. I've played it a little bit this patch. I think my Bear is like 411 or 412 item level. I've done a couple of 20s here and there, but nothing too crazy. But I'm hoping that this 2-set and 4-set bonus maybe allow it to be a little bit more sturdy, I guess is the best way to put it. Their damage is okay in keys. It's not, it's like, oh, well, it's average, and then they just fall over all the time. But anyways, not enough, enough ranting. When you take damage, Mangle and Thrash damage and Rage Generation are increased by 15% for 8 seconds, and you heal for 6% of the damage taken over 8 seconds. So when you take damage, you heal back for the damage you're taking. So it's like a weird version of like Stagger or old Frenzied Regen. So Frenzied Regen used to actually work similar to like Death Strike, or how Soul Fragments work now, is that you would actually heal for like a portion of the damage you would take or you recently took. So they're kind of trying to implement that back into the tier set. So I think this is interesting. Thrash and Mangle damage are going to just be increased, and Rage Generation by 15%. Now, I don't think the Rage Generation is actually something that bears really struggle with. I mean, we're not going to like say no to free Rage Generation, right? So like things like Thorns of Iron, like we'll be able to dump a little bit more Iron first for more AoE damage. But I think the biggest thing is that you're going to heal back the part of the damage you take, which is pretty good. As long as you're not getting one shot, you're going to heal back a little bit of the damage, right? It's hard to like, I'm trying to visualize how this might end up working in Mythic Plus. I'm not sure if will the buff be dynamic? Will it like change as you take damage, or is it gonna like snapshot from a certain point, or how is it gonna work exactly? I mean, at the end of the day, it's good. Is it gonna get amplified from like Frenzied Regen with Verdant Heart? I'm not sure. I think I like where they're going with this. I just don't know if it's going to really help Bear in the way that it needs. Because I think Bear needs more than just a tier set. I think they need like a really good foundational rework. Anyways, 4-set bonus, Maul and Raise damage increased by 20, and casting Iron Fur or Maul or Raise increases your maximum health by 3% for 12 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Now, is this going to be similar to the DH set? Is this going to overlap? Or is it going to extend, and the idea is to cast Iron Fur, Maul, or Raise basically to increase your max health? Now, Bears have a lot of health now, especially with like Incarn, as well as just like Bear form by itself. They have one of the highest base health pools. So this is only going to kind of escalate that further. This might help with like one-shotty things, and it's obviously going to scale into like Frenzied Regen because it's percentage based. Same thing with the Renewal, though side tangent, Renewal needs a much shorter cooldown than a minute and a half, but right now we're stuck with a minute and a half on Renewal. But basically doing your fillers, or not fillers, but your spending Rage is going to increase your max health up to 15% for 12 seconds. This will incentivize in Mythic Plus chain pulling, which is something that a bear, I mean, most tanks typically like to do, because it allows you to maintain resources, maintain mitigation. So trying to always be spending Rage throughout a dungeon will be really good. But the problem with this is that it takes you, I mean, so like you'd have to do 5 Iron Fur casts, so you need to spend 100 Rage, basically. No, more than 200 Rage without Incarn to get this to your max stacks. Meaning that similar to how most tanks are and how Bear is now, it takes time to ramp up your mitigation. Overall, though, I think it's not a bad set. I'm going to have to do some testing with this to see how it plays out. But hopefully it helps alleviate some of the pain that Bears have been feeling, but I'm very skeptical. All right, let's see. What is next? We have Monk, I think. It's Monk, Paladin, and then we have... Yeah, okay. So, the Brewmaster. Our 2-set. Blackout kick damage increased by 20%. This is going to be good in like single target, as well as smaller pulls where you're allowed to cleave like 2 targets with the the shadow boxing treads. You have a 10% chance to not reset your elusive brawler stacks upon successfully dodging. Does this matter? Like, honestly, we already play a lot of talents that play into elusive brawler, and I feel like dodge is just, it's like already so high as it is, especially because blackout kick cleaves, and when it cleaves, it also builds up more stacks of elusive brawler. So I guess like the blackout kick damage is fine. You have a 10% chance not to reset elusive brawler. I don't think that matters for how fast we stack. Brewmaster mains, let me know how you feel about that. I just don't think it'll matter. Like, compared to some of the other tank sets, I think this is the weakest one so far. Yeah, I'm not really sure how this is going to really play outside of like just being flat 20% damage increase on blackout kick. Because like our dodge chances are already so high. I guess it doesn't matter. All right, so 4 set. Rising Sun Kick now grants a stack of elusive brawler. So that even plays into it more. I guess you're going to like high roll now on like extending and hoping that your elusive brawler doesn't reset. I'll be playing a minigame to see how high I can get the stacks while in combat. When you dodge, damage and critical strike chance of your next blackout kick or rising sun kick is increased by 5%, stacking up to 5 times. So this seems like, unlike the other tank sets, this one seems almost more DPS related, which is weird. Where like a lot of them are like Fiery Brand, Vampiric Blood, and then even like the bear is giving you like max health and like a stagger-ish element of like when you take damage you heal back for a portion of it. Where this set just seems like it's here's some damage, you're getting more dodge, which you already do a ton of, and you're damaging critical strike chance of your blackout kick. Like I guess that's good, right? Like Rising Sun Kick hits like a truck, especially with the 10.5 rework. Like Rising Sun Kick actually feels good to hit now. Blackout kick just part of your core rotation. I think that this set bores me. This isn't very enticing. I might be wrong. Like I'm trying to think of like how this will truly benefit and make like Brewmaster really OP, like how some of the other tanks are feeling, but I just can't see it. I'm not excited for this one, despite being like quote unquote a Brewmaster main currently. I'm not too excited about this one. What's next? We have Protection Paladin. All right, so similar to Blood Death Knight, Protection Paladin, I haven't played as much this tier. Oh, no fucking way. I just read the 4 set, but we'll do the 2 set first. Avenger's Shield causes target struck to burn with heat fire, dealing an additional 20% damage dealt over 5 seconds. Heartfire heals you for 100% of the damage it deals. What the fuck? Avenger's Shield causes target struck to burn with Heartfire. So it's going to apply a dot, dealing 20% of the damage it dealt over 5 seconds, and you're going to heal for that. So not only are you getting the absorption shield from Avenger's Shield, but now you're going to be applying a dot, which is doing a portion of the damage, and it's going to heal you for that damage done. That's kind of nuts. And then Judgment Critical Strikes can trigger Grand Crusade. Wow, words. Judgment Critical Strikes can trigger Grand Crusade. Grand Crusade is just your Avenger's Shield proc, right? So I wonder if that'll make crit more relevant, because right now the play is pretty much spam Judgment as like your main source of generating, and then obviously you're filling with Avenger's Shield and Blessed Hammer when needed. I wonder if Critical Strike will be more of the play now, just to get extra Grand Crusade procs to play into the 2 set. I feel like the 2 set here is much stronger, but the 4 set is still like pretty interesting, because now it's just going to increase your proc chance, right? By like a lot, because you're casting Judgment every couple of globals. Huh. I don't have much to say about this outside of like it just seems fucking dope. We'll have to see how this one plays out though. Last but not least, Protection Warrior. It's way here at the bottom. All right, 2 set. Shield Slam deals 15% increased damage and reduces the cooldown of Last Stand by 0.5 seconds. During Last Stand, these effects are doubled. Wait, what? So Shield Slam is now going to reduce the cooldown of Last Stand. So you're going to get another form of cooldown reduction, which is already over, like, that's just OP. Realistically, like, I think in a dungeon, or even in a raid, I guess, like, you might end up only reducing it by, like, a total of, like, it's half a second. And how often are you shield slamming? Like, in large AoE pulls, you're not shield slamming as frequently as you're spending more of it on Thunderclap, Revenge, Ignore Pain, and, like, other filler, like, not other fillers, but other cooldowns. But during Last Stand being active, those effects are doubled. And then for 10 seconds after Last Stand ends, Shield Slam unleashes a wave of force dealing damage to enemies in front of you and reduces the damage they deal to you for 5... Wow, words are hard. And reduces the damage they deal to you by 5% for 5 seconds. Holy shit. Is this gonna force us to play like bolster? That might actually force some bolster plays here, where we're gonna have Last Stand being a shorter cooldown to get it up more often. Does Shield Slam, okay, so Shield Slam's damage is increased. So Shield Slam unleashes a wave of force dealing damage to enemies in front of you. Now, does that replicate the damage of Shield Slam, or is that like a separate valued number? If it's separately valued, we'll have to see what it actually looks like. But this is going to turn Last Stand into a like offensive and defensive cooldown. So during Last Stand, haste will still be way needed for this, because you want to get out as much damage and as much Shield Slams as possible, especially with like attack speed proccing your Shield Slams. So you're going to want to Shield Slam as often as possible to get as much cooldown reduction as possible on the cooldown. Those are a lot of words. I'm trying to think of like what's the potential uptime. Like you could probably, during Last Stand, you could probably get off like anywhere from like 6 to 10 casts, right? I think you can get it down to like a minute and 40 second CD, which is insane, already counting like we have Shield Wall and Avatar, which also have cooldown reduction components to it. That's pretty dope. Prot Warrior's not going anywhere for Season 2. That's insane. Especially if they're bringing like the bolster playstyle back for Freehold. That's funny as shit. Bolster was a pretty big thing in BFA, if I remember correctly, where you would run like, you would basically like have like a bunch of cooldown reduction, and you'd have Last Stand active almost like the entire time. Wow. Okay, those are cool sets. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts on these. Which one is best? Which one is worse? I personally think the Blood Knight one is actually looking really, really strong, and I think the Brewmaster one is probably the weakest out of the bunch, but we'll have to see. They did say that this is, please note that the designs and values below are a work in progress. So you're going to see these values updated and changed and hotfixed at any time. So basically they're just saying like, hey, these aren't the finalized like sets. So, but let us know what you think. Really, really cool. Anyways, a lot of videos coming in the future. So if you ended up liking this video, feel free to hit that sub button, hit that like button. Goes a long way for the channel. Huge shout out to my Patreons. Thank you guys so much for the support, because without them, there'd be much less of this. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.